The women walked down the stairs from the second floor, their saddle shoes squishing against the marble. All of the students and professors at the Moore School of Electrical Engineering were men, and the women were used to being hazed, ogled, and mocked when they walked down the hallways or down to the differential analyzer room, where some of them had worked. But this time the hallways were quiet. Betty, Jean, Kay, Fran, Marlon, and Ruth, the 6 women assigned to program solutions for Army ballistics trajectory problems, all 20-somethings, turned right and stopped at a set of double doors. A sign read, "Restricted." For 3.5 months, in classrooms, an antechamber, and a repurposed nearby fraternity house, they had been familiarizing themselves with the computer behind the door, studying diagrams and piecing together the puzzle of how to use it. But they had never once been granted the privilege of seeing the computer that they would program. They had been prohibited from setting eyes on it. Until now. It was mid-November 1945, almost 3 months after the official surrender of the Japanese, and the women's boss, Captain Herman Goldstein, serious-minded with an officious air, was walking in front of them. With no warning, he had summoned them down from the second-floor classroom in which they had been working. The double doors swung open, and they came face to face with the electronic numerical integrator and computer, the great ENIAC, all 45 units of it. They had nearly given up asking when they would see it, let alone move the switches and wires and cables they had come to know so intimately on paper over the past 3 months. But now everything had changed, and they came out of the classroom and followed Herman down the wide concrete steps to the first floor. It was like meeting someone in person for the first time after studying their face in photographs. A series of black steel units, each 8 feet tall and 2 feet wide, stared down at them. The units stood in the shape of a huge U, 16 on the left side, 8 at the base, 16 more on the right. 3 square units on wheels stood at odd places around the room, while the remaining 2 units, an IBM card reader and an IBM card punch, were connected by wires. The women were delighted. Curious to get a better look, they walked around the large 30 by 60-foot room. The units had been pushed away from the wall so that the engineers could work on the backs. The women took in ENIAC's depth, a few feet. They inspected the great U and examined the units and their switches. They were impressed. They knew this huge computer was capable of completing 5,000 additions in a second and 500 multiplications in the same second, not to mention lightning-fast divisions and square roots. Even with the AC roaring, they could feel the heat coming off the tubes and hear their low hum. It had taken more than 200,000 hours of work to build ENIAC and cost just under $500,000, equivalent to just over $7 million today. The women had closely studied the machine on paper, but to see it before them in real life was surreal. They walked around the room completely absorbed by ENIAC, oblivious to the other people in the room. Too soon, their senior supervisor, Herman Goldstein, brought them out of their reverie with his command. "We're going to put a problem on." They looked up and realized there were about a dozen people already inside the room that they had missed while gazing around in wonderment. These included some young ENIAC engineers, builders of the computer, and Herman's wife, Adele, a mathematician who had trained some of the women to calculate ballistics trajectories when they first started their Army work. There were also 2 men from an Army base in New Mexico who the women had met briefly that summer, Dr. Stanley Frankel and Dr. Nicholas Metropolis. Herman quickly assigned the women to work with various other people in the room, and they took their places around the units of ENIAC. Metropolis and Frankel distributed small prepared slips of paper that were slid into metal slots at the front of many of the units. Engineers had been testing small problems on ENIAC, such as tables of squares and cubes, but this new problem, which no one explained, seemed to take up almost the whole machine. As everyone awaited the next command, there was a moment of silence.